Greetings students, now we are going to see the second part of your warehouse and its concept. In previous session, we have seen about the logistics supply chain and then the definition of warehouse, then what are the concerns when we selecting the warehouse and then why we need it. These are the topics we have covered. In this session, we are going to cover about warehouse site selection. See, whenever you are selecting a warehouse, you have to consider a lot of significant things. Number one, why you need the warehouse, that is purpose. The second one is the proximity. Proximity in the sense that how distance in terms of from both source goods and the customers. See, the customers and the source goods required by the manufacturer, both should be in synchronized or with the minimum distance. That is what we call it as a proximity. The third one is the condition of the site. What kind of products you are storing in it and what is the condition you require. That is what kind of temperature you require, what kind of facilities you require and what kind of environment you require for the warehouse. That has to be considered. The third one is the size and available land. So basically the size and the available land, this is most important criteria because it carries almost all the logistics. That is inclusive of your transportation, what kind of vehicles movement and what kind of transportation, I mean the manpower movement and equipment movement, all those things will be considered in this. The next one is your security. The security is one of the prime criteria for any warehouse because nowadays a lot of security agencies are available for various courses and various materials will require a lot of security. Suppose if you are going for the information system or something like that, then there the information security is with the software and how frequent your network is, whether it's a Wi-Fi or wired network or something like that, you have to select the network accordingly. And if it is the warehouse goods or something like that, then the security is completely different. How many security checks you need, all those things have to be considered. And the next one is easy to access to the skilled labor. This we have already seen about what is the concern because the skilled labors are most essential for any warehouse. In warehouse, you need a skilled labor for operating a computer and movement of your access or movement of your goods, then how you are keeping and crane operator etc. for the movement of your goods. Then you need a proper checker, the product code and etc. There also you need a skilled labor who knows technically what kind of product it is, how far it is moving, what kind of package it has been to be ordered. All those things have to be comes under your skilled labors. Then the service available, what kind of service you are providing through this warehouse. And the next one, easy accessibility. Easy accessibility is not only the environment, it also depends upon how the public transport is and what are the equipments you are having for access the goods and etc. And what are the warehouse functions? When we see about the warehouse function, first of all, the receiving goods is one of the major function of your warehouse. Then maintaining records. See guys, this is friends, the maintaining records is one of the prime concept for any warehouse. Maintaining records is not only for the material but also the movement, transportation and who is coming and who is taking it, where it is going, how long it goes and how many days it takes. All those records should be mentioned over there. And what is the condition of product, that is also to be mentioned. Then the identification. The identification is the prime criteria because in the warehouse you have a lot of frames and lot of materials are stored in it. Unless you have a proper identification, a particular, it's like a library. How you are having a library book, which rack you have and what is the identification of that particular book and what which floor it has been stored. All these things will be available in the software. Once I search for my book, then automatically it shows whether the product, whether that particular book is available or not, or if it is available, which rack, which floor, and what is the serial number, order, everything it will show. So I can straight away go to the particular shelf and pick out the book and I can carry forward. The same thing, this kind of identification is required for any warehouse material because it's essential to identify. Then comes picking. As I told you that the storing and picking. The storing is another concept. See, basically when you store a product as like keeping in the rack, but the storage itself is the criterion which is meant for the warehouse, because the reason is that how you are storing your product, that makes the difference. For example, if it is a refreshment product you have to store under a cooler condition and also with the proper container. If it is the ordinary material, you can put it in a proper box. And because whenever someone wants to transfer that particular goods, either shipping or receiving, then it should be in the proper condition to travel across through the transportation. Such a way you have to store that particular product without any damage. That is most essential, because if the product gets damaged during storing, then automatically the efforts which has been put for manufacturing that product and the value of the product, etc., is gone. Then packing. This is one of the criteria, because in the warehouse we are not only talking about the raw material, but we are also talking about the finished goods. It may be vary from soap, or it may be vary from edible oil or edible goods, or it may be vary from the refrigeration edibles like meat, fish, and etc. And it also comes to the electronic goods. So the packaging differ from one entity to another entity. The soaps and etc. may be packed in different way, and the refrigeration material may be packed in different way. If it's electronic goods, the packing will be different. So like every product will have its own packages. So accordingly, the packing should be done. Then the delivery of breaking of the bulk. Breaking of the bulk is one of the criteria where you are receiving a bulk product from the manufacturer. In the bulk package, you have to split the bulk into smaller quantity according to the needs of the customer, or according to the needs of the wholesaler, according to the needs of your distributor. So breaking the bulk and putting a proper package as per requirement of the distribution, that is one of the biggest challenge in the warehouse. Delivery of goods. The delivery of goods is nothing but giving or making the goods to reach the customer. That is what we call as the delivery of goods. We will see one by one. See, the receiving is goods. The foremost function of a warehouse is to receive the goods from the manufacturer or the supplier, and on receiving, issue the receipt for the same. Receiving goods from the supplier, as I told you, the raw materials are receiving from the supplier, but at the same time, the finished goods will be from the manufacturer. Once you receive those products, then the warehouse keeper's duty is to issue a receipt for that. So the safety of the goods is the primary responsibility for any warehouse. While receiving the goods, what condition you are receiving it, that has to be checked. And once it is received, the condition of the goods has to be mentioned in the receipt, so that whoever is going to receive the goods next time up for shipment to the customer, during the time he will check whether the goods received properly in the warehouse. If it is anything get damaged, immediately you can call hold of the keeper of the warehouse. So it's a kind of scrutiny check or the security check, you can call it. The next one is maintaining the record. On receiving the goods, the keeper of the warehouse or the concerned authority maintains a record of the receiving goods and issue receipt to avoid confusion later. That's what I told you in the previous message of receiving goods. Like once you receive the product, you have to mention the condition of the product, whether it's been properly packed or any damage has been happened to the package or any damages happened to the inside product. All those things have to be scanned and checked. If it is proper condition has been checked and returned in the receipt or something, otherwise the keeper will be informed. So obviously its the main job is maintaining the record, writing the condition of the goods, what is the product code, what is the self code, how it has been received, from which manufacturer it has been received. All those things has to come into the warehouse records. See, probably the warehouse is not only for one plant, it may be meant for many plants. You may be receiving the manufactured goods from plant A, plant B and plant C. If it is received from plant A, on the record you have to say plant A, this is the product code, this is its weight and what is the value of it, what is the MRP mentioned in it and whom it has to be sold. So all those details will be on the receipt. Based on the receipt from the manufacturer, the records of the warehouse has to reflect on that. Apart from that, what is the current condition of that particular product, that is also to be mentioned, because the reason is that while you are shipping the goods from outside, that is from warehouse to the consumer or to the supplier, during the time all this condition has to be checked and hand over to the proper person or proper authority. That is why the maintaining record is most essential. When in need, these records can be retrieved and checked. For in olden days, you know that in banks you have a big ledger and each customer will have one sheet per account. So in that account you will be always noting that when what date the customer receipted, how much he deposited, or how much he debited the account, how much money he took, and all those records will be there, whether the person comes in person or he sent an official or he sent an office boy, all those details will be there. But nowadays what will happen, all those things have been computerized. Similarly, because the reason for computerization, or we can thank the technology, because the retrieval of the records is very easy in the system. Obviously it has its own merit and demerits, we are not going to discuss those stuff, but the retrieving of the information is essential for any kind of product. In such a case, we have to retrieve and checking that particular product condition is most essential for warehouse. The identification, it's a duty of the warehouse keeper to segregate the item as to avoid the confusion between the goods from the different firms. That's, as I told you, you have a plant A, plant B, plant C. They have different product, but the same warehouse they are utilizing for storing. In such a case, the keeper should not have any confusion which plant it has come from and what is the product and all those stuff. So identification is must. It makes it easier for the warehouse keeper to separate different product of the different companies. So the identification is one of the base criteria for identifying a product from raw material to the finished goods to the consumer. Then storing. See, those in storing, it is one of the most important function of a warehouse to safely store the goods in the warehouse, because unless you store it safely, it is very difficult for you to retrieve the goods with proper condition. Then comes the measure to be taken to ensure the proper safety of the goods. The proper safety of the goods is nothing but how you are keeping the goods in the shelf and how we are taking it out, what kind of equipment you are using. It should not be crunched, it should not be crushed. So all these things are comes under the safety of the product. And there are some items that are consumed whole year, because see, for example, if you look at the mango juice or something, the season will be only in summer, probably in April and May you are getting the mangoes, but the consumption of maza or slice and all those things for the entire year. So what will happen, this kind of seasonal fruits or seasonal product that has to be stored in the warehouse, which will be available for the whole year. There it has to be taken care how particular product has been stored, seasonal fruits, and how it can be done for a proper storage. For example, if you are looking at that, see, nowadays because of the revolution happened in agriculture, we are getting everything at any point of time. For example, in drumstick and all, usually we can see in the villages only during summer, but nowadays it's available in all seasons. And if you look at the fruit for juices, oranges are in the winter season and like that. So apples also now, instead of seasonal, it will come in almost all the days. The reason for that is because the export and import has happened globally. Wherever there is a winter season, they are getting apples. Those they export those goods and we are receiving the apple with the fresh condition nowadays. And at the same time, if we are having proper import also happen to the in winter summer season to them. So like that, based on the seasonal, the fruits are being transferred from one country to another with the proper storage. That is why we are having this kind of seasonal products also stored in the warehouse for available in the whole year. The next one is packing. See, some of the warehouse offers the facility of the package to the owners of the goods. See, the facility is required because the warehouse is the area where you are storing the product in the bulk way. So whenever we want to package individually or the less quantity, the packaging facility should be available in the warehouse. That is most essential. So the packing can be customed depending upon the size and quantity dependent. For example, if I am going to order a single mobile cover, then what will happen? Only one mobile cover, they have to put in a proper cover, then there should be a coverage of papers, and then apart from that, unbroken sheet should be overlapped, then they will put in a package and send it across. For that, the package itself, if you look at a single cover, probably it will be costing around 300 rupees, but the packaging cost itself takes almost 10 rupees, because all the coverage, and then it has to be properly packed and proper sealed, and then the proper address of the customer has to be mentioned over there, and it has to send through a courier. So all those charges will come under their packaging. It is for only cover, but if it is a mobile phone, then what will happen? They have to check whether all accessories are available in the package. and then they have to check whether the mobile is properly packed. If not, it will be broken on the way. So like that, all this, which item has to be packed in which way, that has to be designed, that has to be put in the process paper. So they have to follow the procedure in packing, and then only it will be sent across. It may be a small quantity or big quantity, accordingly the package material, way of packaging, and how it has to be transported, all those things has been said, put in the procedure they have to follow in the warehouse. So moreover, the breakups can also be done in the required by the customer. For example, if the package consists of 100 biscuit packets, but basically the consumer wants only 10 packets for some function, and in another person he needs 150 packets. So if it's 150 packets, then I have to take 2 back, one I can send it across, the other one I have to divide into 2. Then only I can send 150 biscuit packets to a particular customer. So accordingly, the breaking facility should also available in the warehouse. So you have a separate space for it. You bring the wholesale bulk into that particular place and then break into according to the customer requirement, and again properly pack the holded items, then put it back into the store. So breaking of bulk is also one of the functions in warehouse. Then comes the delivery of goods. See, basically the delivery of goods is a last function, but it has to be looked into in proper way. The last function of the warehouse is again very important. If it is responsibility or safety to deliver of the goods to the customer. See, the damaged goods, if the customer receives, there are a lot of returns will be there. Apart from that, the image of the company and image of the people who are working on that and image of the product will go down. So if it is properly not followed, then automatically the product will be out of the market. So the packaging and delivery of goods is one of the essential thing. The product should reach the consumer properly, otherwise it is very difficult to sustain in the market. Once the consignment is ready to be departed, the keepers has to check the related documents at the last time, and then consignment gets loaded into the transport. That's why I told you. After packaging, they will send again to the scan, and once the package has been scanned, then only it will be transported. Once it has been transported, you cannot get it back. So proper order, proper challan should be given, proper order format has to be given, and proper address, etc. Everything should be given to the transporter so that the product reach the customer properly. So these are the main functions of your warehouse. Then comes the last item, the warehouse types. See, the warehouse types, it's vary from one place to another, because the reason for that, it has been governed, and the cost involved for the warehouse is very high. Because of that, you have a private warehouse, public warehouse, government warehouse, bonded warehouse, a refrigerator or cold storage warehouse, and cooperative warehouse. See, generally when we talk about the private warehouse, obviously we know that by meaning itself, it has been owned by a private organization or private parties. But in the public warehouse, this may be held either by government or by the private, but it will be given as a rental purpose. Like, see how we are having the government houses. For example, if you go to Tamil Nadu tourism, if any people come from government, obviously it's meant free for them. But if the private, if it is empty, then the private people can also occupy that with the minimum fees. That is what the public warehouse, and the government warehouse is meant for the government manufacturing goods, but sometimes it will be available for public also. Then the bonded warehouse is completely different from your government and the private. The refrigerator and the cold storage warehouses are meant for the perishable goods like vegetable or the seafood and etc. Then the cooperative warehouse, it is meant for, or it has been constructed for some charity purpose. So whatever the income coming through this, that will be spent for certain charity purpose, or it will be help to the poor needs. Look at the types of warehouse. In this, the first one is private warehouse. So generally the private warehouses are primarily owned by firms or organizations. The bigger organization are capable, or the bigger organization are having a sufficient cost to hold a warehouse. A big chains like Procter & Gamble or Dell or Microsoft, all those people will have their own warehouses in the behind or near to the manufacturing unit. So because of that, the warehouse will be privately owned, the firm with higher turnover. Because whenever you have the higher, because the warehouse space, if you look at it, it will be more than 3000 square feet or 5000 square feet. So whenever you have the high turnover, then only the firms will want to own its own warehouse. Otherwise, they will hire something else. So the firms with higher turnover and a specific storage requirement own a private warehouse near their respective business center. The business center may be a distributing center, or it may be near to the manufacturing unit, or it may be near to its wholesalers. Because whenever you talk about a wholesaler, he will not do only with one product. Because the reason for that is, if you are doing only with one product, then the turnover should be very high. Otherwise, it is very difficult to sustain the market. So the wholesaler will get 2 or 3 companies together in the warehouse, and he will distribute to the private vendors, or it will distribute to the distributors. That is why the private warehouse will be owned with higher manpower and high turnover, apart from the specific storage requirement according to the requirement of the product. If the product requires some temperature, less temperature like 4 degrees or something, accordingly the specification they will create a warehouse accordingly. If you need a minus 5 degrees centigrade to store the seafoods and etc., accordingly they will design the warehouse. So like that, based on the requirement, the private warehouse will be designed by the owners and maintained and managed by the private firm. All these things, the security wise, safety wise, or the facility wise, all those things will be maintained by the private organization. The firms itself, because generally the safety and the security of the product is most important. When you have a private warehouse, they are responsible for the safety of the stored goods and as well as on-time delivery of the customer. The important criteria for any warehouse is also a transportation, because it has to near to the customer, then only within a shortest time you can reach the customer. For example, let me put it this way. Suppose you want to deliver the food products, for example, dosa or idli, something like that, then obviously you have to be near to the customer, that is within an half an hour you should reach the customer. Then only the product, whatever you are delivering, will be with the taste. That is why the Swiggy and etc., those people are doing that particular work of transportation. So if you want to order an idli from Murugan Idlis, then nearest Murugan Idlis will be identified. From there they will buy and deliver to the customer. So accordingly the charges will be happen. So but if you have only one warehouse somewhere after, say for example, you have to travel around 30 to 60 kilometers to get the goods, then obviously you cannot supply those things to the customer, because it's an edible item that has to be reached to the customer within an half an hour. But at the same time, if you want to deliver a TV or refrigerator or computer, there the customer can wait for 24 to 48 hours, because the goods will not get damaged and customer is also not in a hurry to utilize it. So there the warehouse can be a little bit distance. That is why they are accountable for the safety and also on-time delivery. The on-time delivery is a commitment given by the organization to the customer. If you ask for the Swiggy or Amazon, whoever carrying the edible items, they will assure the delivery will be within 1 hour. Even if you go for a pizza or something, and they will ask you what time you need. If you specify certain time, they will follow it if according to the availability of manpower. If the availability of manpower is not there, immediately they will say, sir, that time we are busy, so you can organize for some other time. So this is the kind of on-time delivery will be maintained by the private owners. Accordingly, their warehouse is also placed. And the factors such as the size. The size is nothing but how many square feet you need for the warehouse. Location. Location in the sense which should be near to the customer and also near to the business center, so that both way the transportation time and the cost will be less. And then the facility. Facility, as I told you, what kind of temperature you need and what kind of facility you need, how many racks you need, how height, because see sometimes the racks, if it is a computer or something, 1 feet to 2 feet height of the rack is enough. But if it is a larger goods like machinery parts or something, then the height between the shelf itself may be 3 feet or 4 feet. So like based on that, the warehouse design will be takes place. And this all depends upon the type of the product manufactured by the firm. So if the firm or organization manufacture accordingly, you have to provide the facility. These are owned by your private warehouse. This is main advantage of private warehouse is because to store their product in the proper condition. This is essential. The next one is public warehousing. So these warehouses are set up to the convenience of the public and to store their goods. So public also is want to store something because see, I am a vendor or a retailer or you can call maybe a payment shop I may have. So on the payment I am putting all the vegetables and etc. At the end of the day I cannot take these things to my home and get back to the payment because if the distance is more. So what will happen if any nearest public warehouse is there, I can put all those things in a small place and then I can rent it out for a minimum of fees. So the firms may choose the warehouse depending upon the location and the transportation cost. That's why I told you. If my perishable goods like vegetables, I have to carry for 60 kilometers and then come back the next day with the 60 kilometers, it get damaged and also it's waste of time for me. Instead of that, I put those things in the nearest warehouse and then whenever I need, I can collect it back. This type of warehouse may be owned by any individual or group of individuals. The individual means either it may be owned by a single person or a group of people may hold it. For setting up the public warehouse, obtaining the license from the government is essential. Whenever you want to hold it, then obviously the government permission is very essential. Then the public warehouse can serve more than one firm. As I told you, it's not only for one organization, it may be many firms can hire the public warehousing. The charges for a small fee or the can be given for to store the product in the warehouse. They charge a particular fee from each firm for storing their goods. The function of public warehouse is not controlled by the firms which are stored the product but are managed by a group of professionals. So you cannot put any condition. According to the warehouse condition, you have to put your or you can store your products. Then comes the government warehouses. This type of warehouses are intended for both government and the private firms and they are owned and managed by the local, state or central government. Because what means local means panchayat. They can offer a small godowns or panchayat offices there. There you can store your goods and vegetables etc. And if it is a city or something like that, then the central and state government will have their own warehouses. So here both private and government firms can store their goods according to the requirement. Generally this warehouse, if something cyclone or something happened, this warehouse is given free of cost to the private owners to distribute the product. The next one is bonded warehouse. See, this is a warehouse protected building for import goods. See, whenever you have the goods has to be import or export nearest to the port or near to the airport or something like that, then this bonded warehouses will be there. So this will be managed by government as well as the private firms and being managed by private organization. If it is a private organization want to have the warehouse in that, they have to obtain the government license and they have to follow the rules and procedures. The import duties are to be paid for such goods without which the goods cannot be released from the warehouse. At the same time, it cannot be shipping within the warehouse also. So these are commonly funded by commonly found nearest the ports. The next one, refrigerated and cold storage warehouses. These warehouses are used to storing the goods that are kept fresh for a longer duration. The perishable goods like vegetable and seafoods are stored over here. This helps to maintain the quality of the goods for a longer duration, because if you keep it outside in the external condition, it will be damaged within 2 days. But if you put proper refrigeration goods or some refrigeration condition, it may sustain for more than a week or something. If the seafoods may be exported from India to some of the foreign countries where the container refrigeration aeroplanes are there, refrigeration container ships are there. So through that these products have been exported, and these are quite expensive also because of the facility. The lesser expensive warehouses where the slight variation in the cold storage is called as a controlled temperature warehouse, where you can control temperature. It may be from 27 degree to -5 degree. Accordingly, it varies. So the milk, fruit, cheese, etc. can be stored here. Then finally comes the cooperative warehouse. So this type of warehouses are basically owned by some of the cooperative societies and serve only to the members. Because you have to be a member to access these warehouses. The rates of the warehouses are very low. That's why I told you it will be accessed by charity people. So in this session, we have seen about what are the types of warehouses, and then before that what are the functions of warehouses and how the site selection etc. to be happen. So hope you understand what is the warehouses and its concepts. Thank you.